Here we go. Roll video.
I think anybody creating something new must have an adventure.
It's not cinema, it's something else.
My advice to a young filmmaker is to make a movie every week.
The whole bag of movies can be learned in about a day and a half.
But suspense is essentially an emotional process.
You gotta make films. You gotta make it and get it seen.
Cinema for me is a world of when I dream.
Welcome to Behind the Slate, everybody. I am your host, Aaron Strand, and today is a bit more casual of an episode. As you probably know, I just came off of production for a feature film, or at least the first block of production for my feature film Withdrawal, which I've been chronicling on previous episodes of this show. And so it just came off of 5 days of shooting. I'm tired. There's a lot going on in my brain, and I thought, who better to sort of disparse this, to debrief this experience than a fellow filmmaker that I have an incredible amount of respect for. And she just happens to be the co-host of Seen and Heard, another podcast on the Arroyo Film Club Network. What a coincidence. Jacqueline Postajian.
I was going to say, what a coinkydink. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
What a coincidence! You just happen to be on this. You just happen to be on this podcast, this virtual hangout. We just bumped into each other.
Exactly. Wow, how exciting! I'm so happy to be here, and I'm very excited to hear about how it went. I mean, we've been talking a little bit, but I feel like you've been waiting to really tell me, and I'm very excited that you're telling me we're using the podcast to do that. I'm really, really excited.
Yeah. I also just want to say, it's been such a joy of us getting to know each other, like through the podcast, because Jackie and I have we've begun to form that artistic friendship where she I'll send her stuff that I'm writing and she has amazing feedback. I've been honored that she's shared things that she's been working on with me. It's been such a joy to go through that, and just in that spirit of generosity, and how reading other people's work just makes you better. It's been such a joy, and so to share this growth process with you has been just something that has meant a lot to me.
Likewise, it's been great, and I'm excited to keep it going in the context of Withdrawal, which is so awesome.
Yeah. So, let me tell you about it, because I have not told you about this before. So,
why don't you debrief us on how many days?
Okay.
Where was it at? How many people on set? Things like that.
Okay. Great setup. So, so for this first shooting block, we were shooting the flashback sequences, which make up somewhere between a quarter and a third of the script. And we knew our plan is that we were going to take 5 days to shoot these flashback sequences. And there was quite a few of them. I think it was 7 or 8 different locations involved. All of this is shooting in my hometown of Athens, Georgia, which is not only I wanted to film there because of emotional connection and nostalgic connection, but that's also where I have my favors stored up. So I ended up being able to get all of the locations for free. And it's really just because I'm shooting in Athens.
Wow.
That would not be possible in Atlanta. And those are the sort of decisions I felt like I needed to make for shooting at this budget level. So 5 days, 7-8 locations. We've been rehearsing these scenes for 3 months with the 2 lead actors, which I've documented throughout the show. And the crew ended up growing to be a little bigger than I had initially planned. I think I had some fantasy in my head of that, it's just 5 people on set, and everyone's gonna wear multiple hats, and
I've had a similar fantasy, and it never works out.
It never works out. It never works out, and usually for the better, because the truth is that everybody on this set was working their ass off. I think it ended up being about a crew of roughly 15 people each day.
That's sounds about right.
Yeah. And the crew, my producer Jonathan Walls did an amazing job of he really sourced a lot of these people. We really tried to cast our crew, trying to find people with that were sort of aligned in like values, that shared that independent spirit, that would be down with a project like this and like would understand and appreciate sort of like what we were trying to do. And then on top of that, so there was that baseline understanding, and then we tried to go above and beyond in terms of taking care of them from there, as far as like the food we provided, which my mom like cooked most of, which was awesome.
Wow.
And we got some like last minute housing at a supremely discounted rate from someone that I knew in Athens. Again, another like benefit of shooting in my hometown. So tried to take care of everyone to the best of our ability. So yeah, and pretty much everybody on the crew was from Atlanta. The only person who was not from Atlanta was our cinematographer, Emily Marquet, who I had on a previous episode. She drove down from DC, where she's from. She ended up staying in our primary location, which is a house that's owned by my mother-in-law. So we were like like the living room and the kitchen were hot set, and then like the back bedroom was her bedroom.
That's cool.
So yeah, so it was it definitely had that sort of like very indie kind of vibe to it. Yeah, sure, exactly. And so I guess the first like real benefit happened when I thought I was going to be like relocating from Atlanta to Athens like the day before we first started shooting. And that was really stressing me out because I was like driving back and forth every day. And for those who don't know Georgia, like it's like an hour and a half drive between the two of them, which is like.
But why did you think you were going to be doing that?
Well, because I have a toddler. I thought I was like,
oh my God, right? No, but I didn't realize that you don't still live in Athens. You live in Atlanta.
No, I live in Atlanta. No, my wife and I live in Atlanta. Like Athens was chosen one for like the value that it had as a location, but then like I was saying, like all the favors that are sort of stored up there from my years of living there previously. Right. Yeah, but we live in Atlanta now, so it's like an hour and a half drive, which is like not unreasonable. But it's if you're driving back and forth, that's 3 hours every day.
Really hard.
That's tough. And it was kind of dictated by like my kids' daycare schedule. So it's like like 3:30 p.m. if I'm in Athens, like I gotta leave because I gotta go pick up my kid from daycare. And
right.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was really tough. So the first like major benefit happened when my wife Shub, just like maybe like 3 or 4 days before shooting started, she was like, go just relocate to Athens, like I got this, and just like I got the kid, you go do your thing, which is like it seems like so small, but it was like so huge, like the ability to just like relocate to Athens and like just focus full time and like put in like a couple of like 16-hour days like leading up to the shooting beginning. And I was able to like spend time with Emily, building out all the rigs, going through all the gear, sorting through everything, finalizing our storyboards, doing another like location scout, like all this like sort of like last minute stuff that I think really paid off big time in our actual shoot. So, yeah, so I guess this all builds up to day one, which was on Tuesday, August 29th. Our first day, the first thing we shot, and this like, I thought that this would, I knew that this was going to be really hard, but I thought it would really set the right tone. The first thing we shot was with our lead actress, Millie Rose Evans, performing an original piece of music that she had written. And it was like
casual.
Yeah, right. And like in the story, she's like playing for this guy that she likes, and he just bought her this guitar. He's like giving it to her as a gift, and she plays the song and like kind of like blows his mind. But that's like a fucking hard thing to ask an actor to do. Like day one, you don't know any of these people that you're on set with. There's now 15 strangers like staring at you. Okay, like go fucking knock this song out of the park that no one's heard before.
Did you have her like play it before you guys started actually rolling, like maybe like play it once just so everyone hears it, knows it, and then you guys were just boom, boom,
No,
boom?
we rolled on the first take. Now, I mean, she and
Wow.
I had
You're
worked on the
right,
song for months. So like
right.
I was very familiar with the song. I had watched her and tried to help her sort of like just do, take care of like little musical things that I thought would put her in a position to succeed. But it was really more of like a matter of like kind of, I thought it would be good for her to experience like this sink or swim moment. And I kind of trusted that
Mm,
she had the talent and that just sort of like natural performer that like this
good.
will force you to kind of step up to the plate. And I think once you get this out of the way, everything else will feel like
Mhm,
gravy,
mhm.
And
What was your, like, coverage for the performance like?
yeah, well, so that was really interesting because we were getting live audio. So the point was not to then
Mhm,
like re-record the song in a
mhm,
studio and use the
mhm.
studio take. So it also complicated things because this first shot was a 3-camera multicam setup. Um,
Whoa.
so that we would fully cover,
Yeah.
the one take that we were then going to use later on
Right,
in the movie. So yeah,
right.
so 3 cameras. Um, we covered it a few different ways. I tried to like make sure that we got like this and look into the story. Millie stepped up and fucking knocked this song out of the park. Like second take was
Nice.
like was like the best she's ever played it. And
Wow.
and so that was so like immediately sort of like you see the set just be like, okay, like this something's happening here. Like the crew,
Uh-huh.
you just got to get that vibe of like, wow, like
Yeah.
that was special.
Mhm.
And you saw her be like, okay, like I just did that. You know what I mean? And so it kind
Nice.
of like really gave this like confidence boost. And we covered it so we kind of covered it with uh it's kind of like we had our master. We did this bit more traditional coverage. We had a master wide. We had a B cam on close up, getting her face, and then we had a C cam where I put a crew member who's like an old friend of mine, but who didn't have a lot of film set experience. But she said she like wanted kind of camera experience, and I always think that this sort of like educational, experiential energy like really adds things to the set. So her name's Leanne Peppers. She was fucking amazing, crushed all of her jobs on this set so hard. Could not have done it without her. Anyway, first day we were like, hey Leanne, like here's a camera, like you just like find what you think looks interesting. It was like the camera was like on a 135 millimeter lens. It was locked off on a tripod. The fluid head was cranked pretty tight, so it
Mhm.
wasn't, she couldn't really jostle it, but she
Right.
had the freedom to like search around the guitar, focus on like the fingers on the fretboard, and just kind of find what she thought was interesting. And
Cool.
I kind of really like that like energy of someone being like, oh shit, like I thought I was showing up here to like PA, you know.
Yeah.
um and now there's a camera. And what was great was that I allotted a lot of time for this because I thought that, if we were running into problems with the song, I didn't want the actress to feel rushed in her performance. But she ended up crushing it, by take 2. And then we got
Mhm.
like 2 other takes that were great as well. And so from there, then we just started to have fun. Then we started putting cameras like, what funky angles, and we started doing like little rack focuses that like weren't necessarily on her mouth moving the words, so that we could cut into that like master take, which
Mhm.
one we end up
Mhm.
using. And then of course we turned around and shot like reverse coverage of the guy listening to the
Mhm.
song and how it touched him. And then
Mhm.
all this, the scene, she finishes the song and it builds up, and then like in the silence after she finishes, he approaches and they kiss for the first time, and it's supposed to be this very tender, sweet thing. And at the this was a last minute element that got thrown into the film, which is that Emily, when she returned from the UK, well, actually, let me back this up. I was on a location scout with producer Jonathan, and we were going through the locations, and Jonathan just threw out an idea. He was like, yeah, he just said, wouldn't it be cool if like we rented a 16 millimeter film camera and like shot some of this stuff? And I was like, Jonathan, if you want me to say no to something, start a sentence with, wouldn't it be cool if we rented? right? Like I'm not renting anything. I'm trying to
Right.
rent as little as possible for this movie. So I shot down his idea in cold blood. Literally 6 hours later, Emily texts me that night and says, "Hey, I just bought a 16 millimeter a 16 millimeter Bolex. Like, would you want
Nice.
to bring it to set? Would it be cool if I brought it to set and we like found some things to shoot?" So, yeah. So then we like kind of we tested it. She brought it down. We got the film. There's an amazing Kodak Film Lab here in Atlanta that does like great work and
Mhm.
really fast turnaround times for film development. So we partnered with them to get to do our test shots and all of our turnarounds. And we highlighted these sort of heightened emotional moments when the characters, sort of like felt like they were living in a movie, and
Mhm.
picked our spots for these 16 millimeter film shots. And this first kiss was one of them. So the whole scene wrapped with we shot the kiss. We shot it on digital just to like cover our ass, and then we
Mhm.
brought out the 16 mil. It was actually shot on Super 16, and
Nice.
got this kiss, and I got the footage, the 16 millimeter footage back, and it looks beautiful. It's great.
Cute.
Yeah. So I think things had a really good momentum
Good.
off that first scene. That led into a company move to another location for the back half of day one, and this is where I started to make mistakes. Which so for the second scene of our shoot, we went into this like 7-person little like bourgeois party scene. It's supposed to be a
Okay.
party of law students.
I
Where
remember it from the script.
yes, it's this little law student party. They're talking about very bourgeois shit. They're like comparing travel point credit cards. And and we were shooting it. We were shooting it at my friend, one of my childhood friends' houses that he was living at. It was actually owned by his mother, so she let us shoot at this house. Very pretty house. But I did not anticipate, number one, like just how long that company move would take, the amount of gear that
Mm.
was being involved. I had this vision of like shooting this party scene, which is like 7 people sitting in a circle. I had this vision of shooting it with this very like whip pan camera, like drifting around the party, like whatever. And we had that in the storyboards, but I don't think we did enough. We didn't have enough great communication with our G&E people, and like because G&E, like our camera department and G&E, like this is the first time they were working together. So G&E
Mm.
lit the scene beautifully, but it had all these C stands, like, on the quote unquote safe side of the room. And it really
Mm.
cut down on our mobility. And we started the scene, and this was a scene that we hadn't rehearsed before because it had all these like day player actors who,
Yeah.
some of whom I'd never worked with before. So, and also like, it's so hard to like just throw people together and be like, okay, now act like you are all
You guys
students
are
together,
friends.
and
Yeah.
you guys are friends. And like, so I spent like an hour and 15 minutes like getting them to improvise and like trying to like warm them up and like get the conversation with that like degree of energy that like friends talk to each other with, but with the
Right.
casualness that doesn't feel like people are acting.
Yeah.
And I think I spent a little bit too much time on that. I got like,
Mm.
we kept shooting that over and over again in like a master shot. And the other thing is that we had to get a shot outside at the end of this scene in blue hour. So we had this very, very hard out. And my time management was like not on point. I suddenly like felt hemmed in by the like inability of the camera to move, and how like just to reverse our coverage, we were going to have to like move, like we were going to have to break down like 5 C stands and like move them to the other side of the room. At a certain point, I start to like improvise and like go off the shot list, which got like, which, like I could feel like the ripples of sort of like, uh-oh, like kind of like
Yeah.
go through the, like from our wonderful AD Scott Smith, and like kind of on down of just the sense of like, okay, like, well, this is like what we're supposed to be doing. And, it was honestly the thing that like kind of brought us all back together was our audio guy. This, a fantastic audio engineer named Spencer Poole, who, again, I have never worked with before. And it's so hard being an audio guy because he's a one-man department. Like, he's booming and monitoring all the lavs, and he's monitoring seven lavaliers in this scene. You know what I mean? And he was the, as I started to go off script and be like, fuck it, like, I just want to, like, let's shoot this way and then we'll go over here. He was the one who was like, I can't boom this. Like, and I'm really glad that he advocated. I could see that he was like, and he was a little, it's like a tough thing to like advocate for yourself as like a one-man department, but he was like, if you want clean audio from this boom, like, we have got to shoot this side and then we've got to shoot this side. And I'm so glad that he said that and that he like spoke up. And I've worked with audio engineers who have just like said like, that like they haven't said anything. Clearly in their heads, they were just like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I'll do what I can. And then you get to the audio later and it sounds like garbage, but he was like, no, like, we have to do it this way. And because he said that, it really kind of got me like back on course. It was that limitation that like kind of like brought me back to the shot list. And we ended up being able to finish out the scene, but I was pretty rushed. I was pretty stressed. And the other thing, Jackie, that's so funny, and I wonder if you feel this way, because I know I've been like talking a lot here, but the thing that sucks about being a filmmaker is that you spend 98% of your time writing, doing pre-production, raising money, doing all the other stuff. And so the amount of reps that you actually get on set are incredibly low. When you're get on set as a director, making these critical decisions. So it took me like this scene and then into the next day, it literally took me 36 hours to get my like sea legs under me to where I was like actually working at the pace I needed to work at.
Yeah, that's normal. I think. I feel like first day is super, super hard. Like, first day is just, it's always, you're literally getting your sea legs, like you said. But it's really good that you had someone like your audio guy like stepping in and that you listened to him. And I think that's so important, is just like, you really have to listen to your crew. And like, that's just my mentality. Like, when I mean, I've only made 2 movies, but I've trusted the crew with my life. And I think that that's helped me like so much. But yeah, I mean, what a feeling, right? When you feel the world closing in and when you feel like you're running out of time, and it's awful. It's painful.
It sucks.
And I don't know if it's like short film, indie film. It's because we have no money. Like, I don't know what it is exactly. I don't know when that's going to go away, if it ever is going to go away. I really hope it does, because I literally have like nightmares about it still to this day. Like, and I'm sure you will have plenty of nightmares. But it sounds like you handled yourself well. And like, I mean, first day is always hard. First shot is always really hard. It sounded like your first shot went really well, which is great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. No, totally. First days are really hard. And there's that mixture of like euphoria and stress and just that group, like, especially when like the group of people has never worked together as a crew before. Like some people on our crew knew each other, had worked together, but it wasn't like a machine. And everyone is sort of testing each other out, sort of like, well, how much guidance am I going to get? How much freedom am I going to get? Like, if I say something, will I be shot down or will I be encouraged? And all that, all those sort of questions.
I like to do name tags on the first day. Did you do name tags?
I don't, I have, there's something about like anything that makes the set feel like any of the, like, there's a lot of like corporate-y games that make me
It's not corporate.
Name tags make me uncomfortable. Name circles make me really uncomfortable.
Circles are weird. Everyone's too busy. You can't do a circle. That's why I like tags.
We did do I did like a little speech before we started.
That's nice. No, speeches are nice.
I did a little
But
circle
you didn't
speech.
ask everyone to do like, tell me 3 truths and a lie.
No, I will never do that. I will never, ever do that.
That's good.
But I did say this was one of my set rules. So my 4 set rules, if I can even remember them, it's no gossip, number 1, about
Mhm.
about anyone on this production or any other
Mhm.
production. Number 2 is if you're going to be on your cell phone, like take it out of the workspace, because I hate people like sitting in the workspace like scrolling.
Mhm.
Number 3 was if you don't know someone's name, ask it, and if you forget it, just ask again. So that was my little like name
Your name
thing,
thing.
my name
Nice.
thing. And then number 4 was if you see something, say something, both in terms of like the art and in terms of safety. So that was like trying to encourage people to like begin that collaborative dialogue and like
Mhm.
speak up and just know that they would be heard and their voices would be respected.
That's great.
So I'm trying to think. Yeah, we got out of that scene. I did not get everything that I wanted, but we got enough to like cover it and started doing so, and like some interesting stuff started to really happen. We did get our like blue hour shot. Um
Cool.
which was like a little fight that happens like after the party as our 2 lead
Mhm.
characters like they were like walking down a sidewalk to a truck,
Mhm.
and they're fighting about what happened in the party. And this was this was the other thing, is that this tropical storm was blowing up
Oh,
through the
great.
Gulf. Yeah, yeah. So over, kind of hanging over all of this, I don't remember the name of the storm, but it like crossed over northern Florida and kind of like went into southern Georgia. So we didn't know like how much of this storm was going to affect us, but it was already sort of hanging on our head because the next day was supposed to be our big outdoor day. So we're already
Great.
thinking like, well, like fuck us. Yeah, like this tropical storm's blowing through. So but anyway, it ended up where like the characters are having this fight walking to their car, and the sort of like early tropical winds are like blowing through the trees. So we did get this like kind of
That's
cool like,
cool.
yeah, some like this like the sky was like cloudy and had this like wonderful blue tone. The cicada, like the air was really humid, and so the cicadas were like screaming like in the great like southern way. And then we had these like really cool like gusts of wind kind of like blowing down. And
That's
again,
cool.
shout out to Spencer Poole,
I
who
was gonna say, yeah.
well, shout out to him, because as we're losing light, we're worried that it's going to start raining any second. I'm rushing. I'm already stressed from the previous scene, and once again, like he spoke up and advocated. He was like, "We need to stop everything, and I need to like wind protect these lavaliers if we're going to get
Yeah.
anything usable from here." So we had to stop. We had to go back to the house. We had to get the little wind protectors. He took the time to put them on. It took like 15-20 minutes, which of course I'm like pacing in a circle, but I trusted him, and thank God he did speak up, because I've gone back and listened to the audio, and it is fucking beautiful, crisp
That's
audio, no
good.
scratches, no gusts, no wind interference.
Wow.
Yeah, he crushed it. He crushed it.
That's so
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and I could so see it would be such, if I like just imagining myself in his shoes, it would be the situation of like, oh, I don't want to be the guy that like holds this up. I don't want to be the
Mhm.
one who like stops this momentum as like we're losing light. But no,
Mhm.
yeah, just shout out Spencer.
Amazing. How'd you
Um,
sleep that night?
not great. I was we had, because I mean, it was a long loadout out of that location, that final location, and then we were up like even later, me and producer Jonathan Walls and AD Scout Smith, we were up pretty late, like doing these like contingency schedule plans, and like do we cancel these outdoor scenes because of this tropical storm, like
Right.
because we weren't really sure of like how much of the weather we were going to get. But we ended up like at like midnight, like scrapping all the outdoor stuff, rearranging
Whoa.
the whole shoot schedule. Yeah. And moving everything around.
That's
And
so hard.
and thank God we did, because it ended up being like we didn't get any like tropical winds or anything, but it was gray and it rained all day the next day,
Wow.
as the storm like moved through South Georgia. So yeah.
Was there
Yeah.
any, like, did you have issues with, like, equipment rental? Because I know we did, because we had, like, Steadicam, and then, like, he got sick, and So was there anything like that where you had to like rearrange your rentals?
No, so I had as I kind of alluded to earlier, I hate rentals. I hate them because they do add like so many problems.
Yeah, they do.
Um, and they add so many constraints and whatever. So the only things that we had rented were two lavaliers that were like very very nice lavaliers, and then also like a Terra deck for follow focus. So
Cool.
and both of those were sort of like friend situations where we did not have like a hard out
Cool.
of the rental, that we had rented both for the whole week and there was no sort of time constraint on them.
That's really awesome.
Otherwise, everything was either my equipment or Emily's equipment, or our
Genie.
our grips equipment. Riley Krill, he brought his kit along. So and between all the three of us, we had more gear than we needed. So
That's so cool.
yeah. So yeah, I the whole rental thing, because I've done that before, of course, and it's always leads to like so many headaches.
Yeah.
And it's just and it can be expensive.
Oh yeah.
So were you on your short, you were rearranging the schedule, and then it led to a rental conflict?
A little bit, because the Steadicam essentially. But then we had to call in. We knew like a backup guy who also did Steadicam. We switched the shot a little bit. We had to change the day that we did it because we only rented it for 2 of the 3 days, and so we basically found another operator is what we did, rather than like change our rental agreement, which was hard. Morning of, my cinematographer's texting everyone he knows. My producer's texting everyone she knows. And thankfully, we got someone, but it was so stressful. Like, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I know. It was
That's
hard.
crazy.
But I mean, changing from outdoor to indoor is also really crazy. Like changing your entire
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
schedule.
So second day, again, we sort of like divided the day in half. We'd always were going to shoot this scene at our the character Viv's parents' house, and then in the afternoon we were originally going to shoot their like meet cute, which happens out downtown in Athens, and was stuff we were going to like quote unquote steal, even though we had like permission from the city to just shoot without a permit. But we were going to shoot it like in a live environment. Well, that got scrapped because of the storm. We ended up adding in this like or we rearranged it so that at the second day night we were going to shoot this like big fight scene, which ended up being with like a stunt involved, because there's like a stage slap, and then the lead guy ends up destroying the guitar that he gifted to his girlfriend, like in that earlier flashback.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, we like day 2 is this like kind of emotional like tour de force.
Right.
It had this awkward like 4-hour break in the middle of it, where he just told people to like go back to the Airbnb and like chill. And yeah, it was kind of a whole other thing. And also this meant that now like our 3 or really 4 most difficult scenes with the most like complicated elements, whether it was like 7 people talking or live music or a stunt or this parents' house scene where we were shooting at this gorgeous location that was gifted to us by people that I hadn't met before, or I hadn't met before this project, and wanted to be really considerate of their home that they were letting us shoot in. All those things ended up happening in the first 48 hours. And it wasn't like I said, it wasn't until the end of the second day that I was like, okay, I'm ready to start making a movie now. But like now all the like the 4 hardest scenes are already done. It's like, oh man, if I had been a bit more intentional about this, like I wish I had been a bit more intentional about it. Even though the weather,
you can't control the weather.
Yeah, I know. But still, those first 3 scenes were on the original schedule, and I in hindsight, I think I could have done that differently.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of I feel like you are supposed to get the really complicated shots out of the way first, but in terms of like emotional moments, yeah. We did a similar thing because of the Steadicam thing. We had to shoot the goodbye on the second day, but I really wanted to shoot the goodbye on the third day, like the final. The movie was shot in 3 days, but like first thing in the morning, second day, we had to shoot the goodbye, and we hadn't even shot the fight yet. So that was really
Yeah.
hard just to
Yeah.
get in that headspace. But my actors were brilliant and they did a great job. But no,
Yeah.
it's hard.
And
But
maintaining
complications arise, and that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the technical stuff can kind of be pretty forgiving, but maintaining like the emotional continuity of the story is the paramount thing. And it's really that I feel like really, really, really falls on the director. I mean, you have to know emotionally where the characters are
Yeah.
at on the story, because you've really like it's really hard for actors to like they when you're in it, when you're trapped inside the flesh suit, experiencing the emotions and moving through the beats, you get it a little bit, but you just lack that objective awareness of where am I in the story. And that's where I think they really need that kind of like guiding hand to make sure that they know where they are. Um and and it's hard as a director, and I it's something that I like try to pay a lot of attention to, but I still feel like, you know, making sure that that tone and atmosphere is correct for where even as you're jumping around non-chronologically in your story is really tough. Do you ever feel that way?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I felt that way when I was shooting. It was really, really rough. Tell me about like once you got past, like you said, like, oh, I'm making a movie now. Like, tell me about getting past those really hard moments and then
Yeah,
like
well,
finally feeling like you're doing it.
yeah. The truth is that so it that day two, scene one, parents' house, kind of ran into the same problems where like I didn't feel like I had the mobility. We were shooting in this really large space, and so it was harder to light and like especially like with the gear we had at hand. Um um and it was just yeah, it was just hard. I got really stressed. I felt like I was running out of time. My stress was kind of like radiating. I don't do a good job of like hiding when I'm pissed about something. And it's not like I was pissed at anyone. I was pissed at myself. I was
Yeah.
pissed that I wasn't faster, that I had gotten behind, that I didn't get all the coverage that I wanted. Anyway, and what happened is that there was a couple actors who had come in just for that day who were playing the parents, and I had to rush off to the next scene. And I was I was visibly stressed. I was visibly sort of
Yeah.
angry, and so I didn't get to say goodbye to them.
Hmm.
And um, we got the rest of the stuff that we needed. We loaded out. I was like trying to be as consciously aware of loading out of this location as much as possible because these people had let us shoot in their house, like I mentioned, for free. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be the last one to leave to make sure that like no rapper was left behind, no anything. We had like invaded their home for like 6 hours now,
Yeah.
and just like shout out to Shane and Natasha Deacle. Thank you so much for letting us shoot in your house. The house is so gorgeous. It's beautiful, and it will look beautiful on film. All that to say is like I was really concerned about them and like making sure we treated their house with respect or whatever. And we got out, and I got in my car. We had this awkward, several hour break in the middle of the day, and I called the two actors who had left set without getting a chance to say goodbye to them, because I know what it feels like to be an actor, to show up on set for a day, you do your thing, and then production like storms off to the next thing, and you're just like, did I do anything? Like, did I even act? Like, you can feel so empty sometimes. Like there's no
Yeah.
applause. It's not like being on stage. There's no conclusion
Right.
to the
Right.
experience. And so calling each of them and saying, hey, I'm really sorry that like I didn't really like give that attention. Thank you so much for your work today. How did you feel about what we did? And just like taking those moments to just like converse with people was the thing that like calmed me down.
Good.
And that's when I started to feel like, in hearing their feedback of like the things that they liked and the things that they struggled with and whatever, that's when it started to feel real. I also called lead actress Millie Evans because I had been kind of hard on her in the previous scene. In the midst of the stress and whatever, I had sort of like demanded something, demanded sort of emotional beats from her, and was like really pushing hard. And I know that I never gave her any sort of like affirmation of like, you did it, like great job. I just sort of like moved on to the next thing. So I called her to like apologize for that as well, and just say, or just apologize more, just like sort of acknowledgement. Hey, I know that this did that. I wish I had taken a certain tone, different tone. How do you
Mm-hmm.
feel? Just try to like create that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, those were the moments where things kind of like started to settle down from me. And really, after that, like I felt a lot better. And I also, by that point, I had realized like, okay, like I got to really up my speed if we're going to get all this coverage done. Cause now it's like two scenes in a row. I've had my ass against the wall.
Yeah.
Like I gotta be booking it like from shot one. And I've got to not do like 6 takes of our first setup, trying to get the acting beats right. Like we'll get the acting beats as we move through the coverage. And so that's kind of what I brought into that like later day scene, and that worked a lot better.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So day 2 ends late at night. We get through the stunt of smashing this guitar again. Like did multicam coverage of that. No one got hurt. We had consulted with a stunt coordinator about like how to do that and how to do that as safely as possible. Everyone had eye protection. We rehearsed this stunt a lot to make sure everyone knew what they were doing. So we got through that. That was also like kind of a big success of not only did we get beautiful. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, how many guitars did you have? Like, was it one take?
We had 2 guitars.
Wow.
So we had 2 shots at it, but they were custom painted. That's why we
I
only had 2
know,
of
that's
them.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, Cooper Buca, who is an amazing painter, he had custom painted these guitars with this kind of like drip paint style that he does. And so yeah, we only had 2 shots of it. So we had 3 cameras running on each smash. And Brent Michael, the actor who smashed the guitar, just did just had excellent like body control. He really like took the stunt rehearsal advice seriously. Nothing was out of control, but he acted it beautifully to where like it read as this explosion of emotion. And it wasn't just about like watching a guitar splinter. It was about watching these 2 characters like destroy this beautiful thing that had symbolized their relationship. And so I just thought it was really amazing work by them. And I was just so grateful that we got through it without anyone getting hurt, and that we like executed the plan, I think that was also kind of also the moment where it was like, okay, like we planned this,
and it like worked.
And it worked. Yeah. And so the vibes were like pretty good by the end of that day. We went into day 3, which is where we had moved our outdoor stuff. And I could just tell by day 3, the crew had like gelled, like they're all staying at these rental houses together.
Mm-hmm.
So they were up. I know they were up, like hanging out, after we wrapped, and they just came to set with this energy of like, all of a sudden now we're friends making a movie.
Nice.
And that was like, I mean, like that's in many ways like one of the most rewarding like set experiences as a like writer, director, producer, like you want to, because it's like it is a responsibility to try to like set that tone and like make sure that people feel open and like that this can be fun. Yeah. Is there anything that you do to try to like set the it's just like how do you set the vibes? How do you vibe check, Jackie?
I don't know. Maybe it's something I should work more on. I'm very grateful in that the 2 movies I've made, most of the crew knew each other already. Like we had very few strangers that didn't know anyone there. So I think that helped a lot. I don't know what I would do if I was on a set of like no one knows each other. I'd imagine something like what you did. It's like, and I did have a meeting. I had a meeting every morning, but it was just kind of like, good job, keep up the good work, let's go faster. But no, I was so grateful. Like even my lead actors in my short, they're best friends. So like they had incredible
Oh, wow.
chemistry, and like my cinematographer and um my gaffer are best friends that always work together. Like and I've worked with them in the past, and they brought the guys that they also brought to the first movie. And so we kind of all already knew each other. Yeah, my costumer is a good friend of mine, and like my production designer is my sister's best friend who also worked on my first movie. A lot of the people came from the first movie back, so that was really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it did feel really good, and like I miss them. Like you really do become. There's a magic that happens, even if it's just 3 days. Like you guys were 5, but we were 3, and like it still becomes a community. I don't know exactly what I would do if I didn't know anyone. That's interesting. What did I do the first time around? Well, my producer knew everyone, and my producer, who's my co-director on the first one, knew everyone from the first one. So, I don't know. What you give me advice? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that like just trying to I don't know, bring all of yourself to the process. Try to I for me it's about like really trying not to be anything that you're not. Like I get in my head sometimes that I'm like supposed to be like cooler than I am. Like, you know, like I want to be cool. I want to be seen as cool. I want to be seen as smart. I want to be seen as talented. All the typical ego, self-conscious bullshit. And so trying to get over that, which for me is giving myself permission to be like unabashedly enthusiastic. You know, like when people do things that excite me, whether it's like, you know, a particularly like great lighting setup or a great moment of an actor in a scene, like I try to bring like a lot, like I'll try to bring a lot of celebratory energy, you know, of like, yes, like that was fucking awesome. Yes, that's great. Like, great. I love that. You know what I mean? And like, let myself, cause that at my core, like that's who I am.
Yeah.
You know? And so I try to let that shine through. I try to like lead with that. At the same time, I also try to be really careful to never bullshit that and like give that sort of like feedback for things that like don't actually excite me. You know what I mean? So it's like try to stay authentic about it. I don't know if that actually like resonates with people. I mean, that's just my little thing to make sure I'm like trying to stay true to myself. I don't know if that's like an actionable piece of advice.
No, it is for sure.
I think a lot about like, you know, down here in Georgia, we have a football coach named Kirby Smart, who is the coach of the back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs. I don't know if you've heard out there in California who the real national champions are.
I mean, you are preaching to the wrong choir. I have no stakes in sports. I have no interest or even the slightest stake in sports. Sure, yeah, you're the champion. Go for it. Cool.
Yes. Well, it wouldn't be a Behind the Slate podcast if I didn't shoehorn sports in here somewhere. But you know, like that's one thing that I really like love about Kirby is that he does not try to like pretend to be like cooler than he is, and like he is not above like celebrating and kind of like trying to feel the same joy that the players are feeling, and really like by him doing it, it's like giving permission for everyone else to like experience that joy and like not try to be too cool themselves.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. This is gonna sound really lame, but I give a lot of hugs. I do. Like if someone does something I really love, my instinct is just like, that's awesome, and like hug. Like that's it.
I love that.
That's what I do. Yeah.
I love that. I would work. I mean, yeah, of course. Because then all of a sudden, like it does subconsciously affect. It's like, I want to hug. Like, is my work hug worthy?
Yeah. No, like it's not like here's your reward, a hug from me. It's just an instinct, and it's just I want everyone to be very close, and like sometimes it's literally a pat on the back. It's like a good job. Like it's like a squeeze. It's not always a big embrace, you know.
Sure. But I think that kind of affirmation is really important, and like people want to feel seen. It also like helps a team, you know, stay sort of on task, to know that like their work is being recognized, is being watched. Like the good things are being rewarded. The things that may not like necessarily align with the vision are being talked about and like are being worked through. And because no one ever wants to feel like, you know, it doesn't matter what I do on this team, right? Like that's the like bullshit corporate experience that you get from big studio films. I mean, going on set to like TV shows and like big movies, I mean, like it's a total
You're no
corporate
one.
job.
Yeah.
You're no one. You know you're no one, and you know that your menial little bullshit doesn't matter. And you know, for people who are like doing the really hard jobs of those sets, like first or second ADs, they know that all of their good work will never be recognized, and instead they're just going to eat shit for all the like little mistakes that they make along the way.
Yeah.
And that's why they're fucking miserable. And like why ADs in particular are like suffer from such severe terrible burnout. And I just like, it's just such a terrible system.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Me too.
I hate being a part of it. Like I hate walking into those sets and like feeling all that. So yeah, that it's definitely an example of what I don't want to be. Yeah. Well, let me continue on. I'll try to like speed this up a little bit because like we've been talking for a while here. Day 3, you know, people are really starting to gel together. People are starting to have fun. We're starting to get even like a little bit ahead of schedule, and like we're able to like sort of improvise some shots. So just really, really good vibes all around. And really, really proud of people. Day 4 comes around, and day 4 was, so there's this sequence in one of the flashbacks where it's after that party with the 7 people and after our lead characters have a fight going to the truck, where now they go out downtown to downtown Athens. And this is building up to the character Viv using hard drugs for the first time.
I remember in the script,
Yeah, and this sequence ended up being reworked quite a few times. At first, it was like I wanted her to use with her boyfriend, but then it was like it felt a little bit too much of like him sort of like having this sort of like controlling hand, and so then we switched it to like having she's doing it with her girlfriends for the first time, and that kind of like shifted things around, and characters were shifting and whatever. But the as far as production goes, the really difficult part is that we made the choice of we were going to shoot this in a live environment without permission, without permits, and we were going to do it on and I know this doesn't mean anything to you, but we're doing it on the Friday night before the first football game in Athens, Georgia. Oh yeah! Oh my God!
Football game.
Yeah, but no, but like, okay, so Athens, Georgia is a small town. Okay, it's like 90,000 people when you're not counting the students. When the students come, that's 50,000 people are coming to town. Okay, so the town almost doubles in size. Football is like religion here. Okay. And that brings like another 40,000 people to Athens just to tailgate and like go to the game and support the Dogs. All right. And the Friday night before the first football game, in a 8 square block downtown, Athens, Georgia has the most liquor licenses per capita in the United States. Wow. So it is like this concentrated center of partying. And that's why, like, growing up there as an alcoholic drug addict, like, it just was not fair. You know what I mean? Like for growing up in a small town, like, the shit was lit. And we're gonna jump into this like peak craziness and try to film these
so cool,
these scripted scenes. So we came up with this whole plan of like how we were gonna steal shots like in an actual bar that we did not have permission to shoot in. I won't say the bar, even though like obviously like it is on camera later.
And they don't know to this day. They don't know.
No, they don't. I mean, I think they had like a little bit of an idea and they didn't say anything, but no, it was a situation where, well, they're gonna say like, hey, get this fucking camera out of our bar. This is because it is. Well, it is technically an insurance issue.
I know.
I know, like, what are they going to do? And by the end of the night, you know, you'll see how, like, little it actually mattered. But we had this whole plan of we got our, and like we're only filming, like only our camera ops and our audio ops are like actually like working. There's no grip. We had no extra lighting. So we took the whole crew. We invited them all down to this bar. We populated like this corner of an outside patio, and we pretended that it was like one of the actors' birthdays. So I went in, I used the company card to like open a tab. Other great thing about Athens, Georgia is how fucking cheap it was. I ended up buying drinks for an entire like 15-person crew. Final tab was $50, which was unreal. Yeah.
How's that possible?
It's Athens, man. And
how much is like a mixed drink?
I don't know. I mean, I don't drink, so I don't know. But
how is it possible? Is beer
I think
like
$2?
$2?
Yeah, it's like $3 beers, like $5-6 drinks. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So so everyone's out hanging out. We're using our crew as extras. We're placing our actors like amongst this group and then like acting. And our camera op is like has the camera in her lap, like filming them.
What camera is this?
This is on. We shot all this on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K, so it was like smaller because we'd been previously shooting everything on a Blackmagic Ursa, which is much larger. So this was like a smaller, more mobile setup. We completely stripped down the rig, so it was like almost totally handheld, all manual focus. We actually had two of them going. We had two camera operators with two Blackmagic 6Ks. The hardest part is that we had a scene outside of the bar bathroom. And so what we did was in this bar, the bathroom, so you go past the bar, there is a door that leads to sort of like an interstitial area where there's a sink, like a shared sink area. And then there's two doors to two separate bathrooms. So we sent in our two actors first to go into a bathroom, to go into one of the bathrooms. We sent in our second actress who's like waiting outside the bathroom in the scene, and she posted up in the interstitial area. We then sent in our camera, our DP, Emily, to capture this scene. And then I and another grip started forming a line outside of the door leading to this interstitial area as if like, oh man, the bathrooms are all occupied. So we basically like stood guard and like kept any strangers from wandering into our scene.
That's so smart.
While the actor and camera op like captured, got like 2 takes of this scene that we needed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. And another thing, I mean, that was the other cool thing, was that like we planned all this out beforehand and then we like executed it as a team, and it worked. We then captured some scenes out on the street. Getting clean dialogue was a problem because there was a lot of noise interference around.
Right.
But all this built up to where like the characters were dividing into like a boys' night and a girls' night. And the girls' night was where I was going to go because that had an actual dialogue, and it all led up to Viv using heroin for the first time. And then the boys' night, I didn't really have anything planned for it. I didn't have anything storyboarded it. But in the spirit of like, let's keep everybody working, and like, I think they'll have fun doing this, I just told like our B team, our first AC, Lex, that he was going to camera op, and that the actors are just going to have free reign to improvise throughout Athens during this like crazy night. And then 2 other guys were there in support. And so they go off like into the unknown to like do whatever they're going to do. And the girls' night we had this amazing location that we had gotten permission for, which is at the top of a parking deck. It's like the best view in Athens. It's like a 360-degree panorama of the city. I was so excited about this. I get to the parking deck. It's 12:30 at night. I go up. The security guard is like a replacement security guard for like the normal guy. And the replacement guy hadn't been told that we were going to be there. So I waste like 25 minutes, like convincing him just to call his supervisors to try to like track down this permission. I didn't have the email in hand. And in the end, we weren't allowed up onto this parking deck.
No.
I know. I was so devastated. So we had to pivot. Now we're running out of time because like we gotta be wrapped by 2. It's already like 1 in the morning. So we had to find another location. We ended up just going to like an empty parking lot that belonged to a church and just posting up there. I'm constantly afraid that like a cop is going to pull up and kick us out. We're having to like throw up the scene. And this is the moment, Jackie, where like, this is when my back was like most against the wall, because this is like a critical moment. I mean, this is like building up to like our character using heroin for the first time, like with her girlfriends, and it's got to be casual, and but it's also got to be meaningful, and it's got to be earned. And I have blown this scene before, like in previous projects that I've done. I've always done like first time using scenes, and I have fucked them up because I overwrite them and I want them to be more than what they are. And so I feel my back against the wall. I feel time ticking down. I feel like I don't have this location to like do the work for me. And I realized in the real time that I had made the same mistakes that I had previously. I'd overwritten the scene. The lead character had this like giant monologue that was actually like very personal to me, but it was like too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and look, like I haven't edited the scene yet. I could get back to the edit. I could go through the edit and say, and realize like, oh, you know, this is like actually like another fuck up on my part. But the thing that I was proud of myself for is that like, I did the things that I didn't do on earlier projects that have led to trouble. I made the decision like very quickly, went to the lead actress. Hey, I'm so sorry. This is not on you. You're doing incredible work with this monologue, but we have got to cut it. So we just cut this like huge chunk of dialogue out, like in the moment. Then we had to like reshape the whole scene, because that was like the kind of like linchpin beat of the scene. So now we're like improvising, and I'm trying to bring these two other actors along to like kind of find this like friend vibe. And by like 30 minutes into shooting, like they really started to hit their stride. They really started to find this communal connection, which is like really what the whole point of the scene is supposed to be. They leaned into the emotion of the moment rather than any sort of like expository dialogue that needed to happen. And by the end, I think we ended up getting like a pretty good product. And it was one of those moments of like, wow, like it's been 10 years of learning and like 10 years of like making mistakes that like led to that scene like kind of being salvaged when it definitely did not go the way I wanted it to. So yeah.
That is so great. Wait, so she uses in the parking lot, or it's the scene leading up to her using?
No, she uses. Like she's the way the scene has been rewritten now is that she and her friends are sort of like, you know, they're just kind of like they're communing over a mutual like dissatisfaction with life, and one of them just like casually breaks out a baggie and like uses a snuff spoon to like snort a little bit of dope, and it's not this like big thing of like someone's taking out a needle and like, are you ready to like do this? No, it's like effortlessly casual of just like they just start doing it, and the girl is left being like, what is that? Is that Coke? And they're like, no, it's not Coke. Like, you don't have to if you don't want to. And like the girl, then Viv makes the decision of like, actually, no, like I want the relief that you feel, you know? And which is like, I think is more true to my own drug experience. It wasn't always some sort of like big dramatic decision, you know? It was actually like the casualness of it that led to
and
the acceptance.
Yeah, that's so great that you were able to make that decision in the moment, because I mean, when things get rough, and this is something I need to work on, when things get rough and I'm told to make a decision immediately, I freak out.
Yeah.
I just freak. Not externally, in my own mind. I hide it pretty well, but I feel the walls closing in, and I get really hot and my heart starts racing. And
Yeah.
no matter what choice I make, I always feel like, actually, no, that's not true. Sometimes I feel like it's the right choice. But of course, there's always doubt. But I'm so happy for you that you were able to make that choice.
I have lived in fear for 7 years, because on the feature film that I tried to make 7 years ago that I wasn't able to finish, I couldn't stick the landing. And there was a moment on that set when I knew things weren't working, and I stopped and sat down with my producer, and we literally like halted production to like storyboard, like to pitch new endings. Like, and it took us like an hour. We sat on the ground as everyone else just like waited and like picked their butts as we pitched endings. And of
Wow.
course, like none of them were right. Like we didn't solve it magically. And that's the reason why that movie wasn't made, is like because we didn't have an ending and we couldn't stick the landing. And
Whatever
I
happened
have,
to that? No, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the movie like sits on a hard drive, you know, it's a hard drive movie that
Wow.
was never finished. And like,
Wow.
I feel like I have nightmares about that hour of sitting, of like pitching ideas and like knowing in real time it wasn't going to work, that nothing was going to work, that we didn't have the solution, that we were going to have to pick something just to try it. But like knowing in my heart that like this was a mistake, and that like, and I wouldn't fully realize until 2 years later when I like got to the end of the editing process and was like, I don't have a movie. I didn't realize till 2 years later how everything hinged on that 1 hour long conversation, but it has like haunted me ever since.
Hmm.
You know, it's been like it honestly is like, it's one of those things that I think about as I fall asleep at night and go, ugh, like you know, and so to be confronted with a somewhat similar moment this time around, and to move through it kind of with a bit more decisive action, and that is the moment that I think I'm most proud of, like as a director, and that I yeah, that I'm just most proud of.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and the last thing was, so the girls' night, like finally, you know, ends. We're walking back to the cars, and then from like across the street, I see the actors and camera ops from boys' night coming back to like, as we reunite to like go back to base camp. They all have these like shit-eating grins of like, I think you're gonna like this footage. And it was just like, it was so opposite, because I was kind of stressed out of my mind. I was like sweating bullets from like, you know, like having to like redo this scene on the fly. And then here these guys come. I've gone through their footage since. They went out and like just like tore it up. They're like running around interacting with extras and like getting into all kinds of shenanigans. They went into like 5 or 6 bars like with a full camera rig. No one said shit to them. Like it
That's
was
awesome.
so yeah, so
great.
I don't know really what I'm gonna do
time.
with it. Oh, they had a fucking blast. They got drunk. They got drunk and went out and just shot nonsense and had a fucking ball. So I'm glad they had fun.
How fun.
Oh man. All that led into like our last day, which started with like an on-screen like death. We also had an intimacy element of like some backside nudity of our lead actor. So we had an intimacy coordinator on set, Christina Arjona, who drove up from Atlanta that day. So that was interesting. I never worked with an intimacy coordinator before. And she had been with us in rehearsal. It was awesome. It was great. And Christina, I mean, particularly as a credit to her, she was fantastic. But yeah, she had like talked us through like all the intimacy moments, like all the sort of like any sort of kiss or stage kiss. Like we rehearsed it as if it was a stunt, you know, as if it was like a stage slap or punch or something. We knew the beat, you know, how many beats it was going to take. It became like a choreography, and like it brought a level of theatricality and just professionalism that I just fucking love. And it really forced you to get like really granular about like, what is the story here? Like, what's the story we're telling through this moment of intimacy? And I think it creates a safe space for the actors to feel like where they can like play. It's not some weird thing of like, okay, like you guys go make out now. Like, you know, it's like can like be a part of like filmmaking at any level, but particularly indie filmmaking. And I find that, you know, as like an actor who's like married and like, you know, and like, who's like, doesn't want to be like doing that, like just even creating an environment where another actor could walk in and just feel like, oh, there's nothing weird about this. Like this is just work, and we're storytelling, and like everyone's on the same page, because that hasn't always been the case in like previous environments. So I loved the experience. Yeah. Have you ever worked with an intimacy coordinator before?
I've never had a kiss in either of my movies or anything. No, I have not. But would like to one day, hopefully.
I would highly recommend it.
It's so funny
Uh,
because like I have like two modes. I have one mode where I'm like, yes, like we have to do everything and everything needs to be set and planned and whatever. And then I love French films and like I know that there's none of that. There's none of that on French films. And so it's like this inner conflict in me of like, what do I want? But
well,
no, like go ahead.
well, no. So you might be referencing. So like Mia Hansen Love recently,
Exactly.
she has the quote right
And I
about like
love
I would
her, like
never.
yeah, and I love her and I respect her and she's one of my favorite directors. So now I'm like, shit. I don't know.
So I love her too, and just based on this experience, I think that I think she has a fundamental misunderstanding of what an intimacy coordinator is supposed to do.
Maybe she
Because
does.
this this was not about like planning things, or I mean, or canning the experience, you know, for
Mm,
like so that it was drained of all soul. Instead, it was like in the same way that like handing someone a page of dialogue or giving someone some sort of blocking or like having just like blocking for camera just then channels the artistic energy
mhm,
in a direction, and then allows things to happen, but like in just a degree, just with like, you know, bumpers up. And
mhm,
that's
mhm,
all it was, and it
mhm,
was just the conscious talking through of like, where are we at in the story, like what is
mhm,
this.
mhm, mhm.
And so that was not like, because I saw that quote and thought about it. I had the exact same experience as you of like, I don't want to be like some sort of like, yeah, I don't want to be the intimacy police, and I'm not trying to bring in the like the yeah, like the kissing police like into my movie. And but that was not what it was at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never worked with one, so I'm excited to see what it's like one day. So, yeah.
Just in the same way that I'm past the point of a filmmaker where I'm like, you have a bit of stage combat and I'm like, just go punch him in the face, just go do it, right? Like
Yeah.
just see what happens. Who knows, right? Like you wouldn't do that to an actor.
No, yeah.
It's
Yeah, no, you're right.
it's the same thing, and it's like the just in the same way that like a stunt coordinator can talk you through how to safely do a stage punch,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
then in the process the actor discovers like what's actually happening in the story at
mhm.
that moment. It's literally like a one-to-one comparison, and
Yeah.
it was incredibly helpful, not just to me but to the actors as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
um and I thought it like actually unlocked a lot, and led to more discoveries than it inhibited them.
Cool. That's good to hear.
Um, yeah. 10 out of 10 would recommend. And I hope to have Christina on the podcast in the future to like talk a little bit more about her work, because I know that like they're still in a process of trying to like convince filmmakers, and particularly indie filmmakers, of like, is this something that you should invest in? And I'm so glad that I did. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah. Um, we had some more kind of, the last day was kind of an emotional day of like, as far as like
Mhm,
scenes involved. We there was like a kind of like a kissing scene that we had rehearsed with Christina as well, that we shot, and then it led to this like sort of emotional reunion scene between our two lead characters. The actors like really brought it. But all that to say is that we like ended early, and it led to, we had like an extra hour. It was right before everyone, you know, right before our shoot wrap. And we kind of had a last minute idea of like, well, what if we just shoot them like cooking up shots of heroin and get this with the 16mm camera? We had like an extra roll of film that we had bought
mhm.
and hadn't used. And what ended up happening at the end of the shoot, it was like, it was beautiful, Jackie. Like, as far as like as a communal experience, it ended up with basically most of the crew sitting in a room together. It was all MOS, so people had like music playing. They were like passing around a phone, and like people were playing DJ. We let
Cool.
the G&E guys like just go wild with like putting up lights and having fun and doing stuff that they, just let them have like total creative control. I kind of like let go of the director reins, like, because this was all bonus footage, so it was like,
Yeah.
let's just let people play. And it ended up being a situation where like it was like 16 people sitting in a room together pitching out ideas. It felt like this kind of communal, like egoless movie making, and it was just fucking beautiful.
That's so cool.
I loved it. The feeling, the vibes were were immaculate. Yeah.
Jinx.
You owe me a
Wow.
soda. So yeah, that's how things
so
ended.
Nice. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
And I feel like we're gonna bring this crew back together for our shoot in October,
Great.
end of October, early November. And so I felt like it ended in a place where people were excited to like come back, get the gang back together. And
Cool.
I'm really, really grateful and really honored by that. So
I'm so excited, just like based on everything you said. I'm so excited to see it.
yeah, me
And
too.
and how many days are you coming back for in October?
We're coming back for 8 days in October.
Oh wow. Same
Yeah, so it'll be
locations or
like the primary location, this like house that was we're allowed to shoot in because it's owned by my mother-in-law. That's like our primary location. That's like the couple's house. So we'll be shooting in there a lot more than we were for this flashback shoot. And then I have to find a few other locations, a doctor's office, a lawyer's office, a couple little things like that.
Yeah.
But I think those are coming together. And we also have this like live music thing, this like open mic night that like opens the film.
Which opens the film, I remember, yeah.
Yeah. So we have that location secured, which I'm really that's gonna be that's gonna be hard as shit. I'm excited and nervous for that day. But yeah. So we come back October 27th. We've got a lot of work to do before then, but yeah, we feel, I think, heartened with a lot of momentum. Definitely like learned a lot from the last 5 days. And I was hoping going into it that this sort of like break would actually benefit the production, because we would have 5 days to sort of jump in, get our feet wet, get some reps under us, and that like we could hopefully, assuming there was no major disasters, we could carry that momentum into like the second shoot period. And so far that seems to be the case. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's so nice. No, it's so nice that you have 5 and then you have a break and then you're able to get immediately into it, because I feel like, I don't know, when you're just making like a movie in 3 days or a movie in 5 days, you're like, I wish, like, I just need another chance and I can do this so much better next time. And you have that next time already lined up, and that's so nice.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what famous director said this. Maybe you know. Someone talks about like, it's only after you get to the end of the edit do you realize like how you were supposed to make the movie.
Exactly. I don't know who said it, but I agree.
I think it actually might be like Ridley Scott or something. But there's something of because I definitely feel that way. Like you guys were I just listened to your recent episode of Satan Tango, and how Bellatar, like, all these years later is like, yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. I have never felt that way about anything I've made ever.
Feel that way, yeah, but I'm glad he does.
Yeah, good for him. He deserves it.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen Satan Tango?
I haven't seen it yet. I listened to your episode. I very rarely listen to a scene in her episode that I haven't watched the movie for. But
yeah, I got a few messages like that saying like, I'm just gonna listen to your episode and not watch the movie, and I was like, okay, but you should definitely watch the movie. Highly rec.
I absolutely will watch the movie.
You also have a toddler.
Yeah, that's true. The weird thing, I don't know if you do this when you're like in production for a movie, but like I stop watching movies. So I have.
Oh yeah,
I have not watched a movie in over a month. I have not like sat down
Whoa.
and like watched a movie, which is so weird for
No,
me.
that's hard. A month
Yeah.
is long.
Yeah.
In the days that I'm shooting, I mean, I guess it's just because I don't have time now that I think about it. But why do
Yeah.
you feel that way? Why do you feel like you?
I think on a certain level I get so sort of influenced by whatever movie I watch. I always think like,
Yeah,
oh, like we
yeah,
should do it that way. We should do it that way. We should do it that way,
for
and it kind of like
sure.
leads me on a wild goose chase.
Yeah, that's fair. But see, I know I've actually thought about this. Like, once you decide a movie is going to be a certain way, do you stop watching other movies because do you only watch movies that align with what your vision for this movie is? Or do you watch a bunch of different movies and then change what your original vision was? Like, this is a conflict I've had.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you
Yeah.
decide, like, I'm going to make a movie in black and white, and then you just watch black and white movies to get influence, or do you watch other things and then let those influence your original vision? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I like honestly, some of my biggest issues have to do with insecurity or like the voice in my head of telling me that like like I'm not good enough. It's not good enough. Nothing's ever going to be good enough. And I've been that's been a big struggle coming off the shoot.
Yeah.
Even as I just sort of like sometimes I'll just take 30 minutes to like scrub through some footage and like just to begin to like soak it up as a sponge because I'm going to be editing this movie eventually. But yeah, those little like nagging thoughts like really nip at my heels, and they definitely happen in the pre-production process too. And so when I watch like really good movies, I just get really discouraged because it's like, oh, like I'll never make something as good as blah blah blah, like whatever I'm watching at the time. So the only things the last movie I watched, or they've all been Mystery Science Theater episodes. I'm like trying to watch like the shittiest movies possible. Is that and like I don't know, does that actually like bleed over and make my movie shitty?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes from for me, honestly. Well, we're wrapping up here, but what do you have? So you're in the middle of the edit, or you're coming to the tail end of the edit of your short film, which you have alluded to throughout this episode. What do you have coming up?
Well, I want to edit. I just want this to be done, honestly. So I'm hoping to get picture locked like by the end of this month, and then I have a wonderful composer who's a friend of mine. He's going to compose like a piece. I don't think there's going to be non-diegetic score, so I think it's going to be all like playing from the radio. So he has to compose like a 60s-esque piece. So that's going to be fun. But I am actually licensing. So he's going to write a piece, and then I am licensing a song to use for at least festivals. Like I'm going to get festival rights to the song. It talked to me by sending in the Sunliner. So that's exciting.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then sound design and color, but color shouldn't be too hard because it is black and white, and my colorist was on set doing DIT. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so we have
That's
that.
great.
So I anticipate it'll be done like in December. Or maybe earlier, honestly. It's just getting picture locked is it's so hard. Like it is really, really hard. The movie's gone from 20 minutes to 13 minutes. Now it's at 14. I know I've cut a lot. You watched the first cut, which I'm so grateful that you watched and gave such great notes. Changed a lot since then. It has changed massively.
I'm excited.
But it's so hard. Yeah, how do you make that decision? Like when you have to come to terms with the fact that the movie you made is not exactly what you had planned in your head. And then you have to come up with what is this movie? That's what editing is. Like, and it's so hard. It is so difficult. Because I get stressed out. Like at buffets, I get stressed out because there's too many possibilities. Or like markets, like those cool, like Grand Central Market, where there's all these food options. I get stressed out. So that's just my personality. Like if I have too many options, I get stressed out. And that's what's happening now because there's so many different ways that the movie can go, and it's just figuring it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I have coming up. That's what I'm going to be doing. And just writing, the same old.
Yeah. Nice. And you guys are on a little podcasting break.
We are on our annual break, so just going to dedicate a lot of time to editing this, and trying to get an outline for a new script and start working on that.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Do you have is your family still in a position, or like, how often do you hear, when can I see it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I hear it all
good.
the time. I hear it all the time. I hear it from my gaffer actually all the time. So I'm very excited to
come on,
show him.
man. Come on, man. You know
he's
better.
The best. Yeah, no, he's funny. Yeah, so I don't know. Just taking it one day at a time. And then on like my last movie, we made such a big deal about, like, first of all, we edited it, like we shot it like the last week of July, and then in December it was like done, and we're like, let's have a screening, and we like put all this time and energy into the screening that just turned out to be like cast and crew. So that was a learning experience. Like, I'm not gonna do something that time constraining and like costly for like just having basically at the end of the day, like, we had such a big cast and crew that we couldn't afford to invite people that weren't cast and crew. So it turned into this screening that was like literally costly and just for cast and crew. So I have to figure out what I'm gonna do in terms of that.
Yeah. I don't have any answers for that one because it's tough. It's tough, but yeah, you can't be written out theaters.
No, we didn't rent out a theater. We rented out my friend has a space that she gave to me for a really great price, but
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you gonna have score?
I'm pushing that decision off until the edit. I really want to try, I could see this movie being totally without sound or without music other than the music that's played live in the story. I could also see score really adding to it. I've really tried to avoid that decision. It's also been really interesting of like I don't know if you go this project in particular, I feel like there's been like crazy people coming out of the woodwork being like, I compose for movies too. I feel like I've got a short list of like 10 people who have like thrown their hat into the ring of funny. Like of some type of music. And so I've really just tried to like not get attached to anything and try to not make that decision until like
that's
this
so
is something
interesting.
This is something that I really gained from doing the Melvin Van Peebles series and like reading Melvin's book where he talks about going into the editing process for Sweetback and how when he started editing as soon as he finished shooting, but that he like set out a whole new list of guidelines. So making sure that, just like you said, like letting the movie talk to him, letting the movie tell him what it was about, letting the editing process like be a process of its own that was like completely separate from the filming process and that did not like rely on sort of like external feedback. It was going to be like a completely like singular process of letting the movie speak to him, and that it was going to take the time that it took, and he didn't put any deadlines on it. And I really love that. I think that really benefited that movie. I've heard of other directors talking about the same thing, and it's one of the benefits of working in independent film of like you don't have a producer or distributor like breathing down your neck, like needing it done by a certain time. So let that baby ride, put it in the oven.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing is festivals, but I am submitting with like temp sound and color, like at the end of the month, essentially, to a bunch of them.
Yeah. Which is totally cool. Having been a screener myself for Atlanta, and then like from some of the learning that I've done of like other programmers, very like totally cool. I thought that it was like somehow like, yeah, they say that, but they don't actually like accept anything with temp
Right.
sound.
I always have that fear too.
Yeah, but I think that assumption was wrong. So
cool. That makes me happy. That's always good to hear.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I'm so excited for the short. I can't wait to see the new cut.
I know. Yeah, me too. But yeah, no, I'm so excited to see Withdrawal. You've done an amazing job, and it's gonna be so great. And yeah, like I can't wait to see you I can't wait to see the stuff in downtown, like the guerrilla filmmaking in downtown. Like that sounds, I mean, I'm excited for all of it, but like in particular, like that sounds super cool. And I can't wait. That sounds awesome.
It's some pretty fun footage for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. We'll have to do it again sometime soon. And thank you to everyone for listening. As always, you can email me behindtheslatepod@gmail.com. It's behindtheslatepod@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at behindtheslatepod. You can also follow the film's Instagram at Withdrawal Film. I think that's all the stuff. Last thing is that the next month, as I'm continuing into pre-production, I'll be doing some more little project updates, but I've also got some really exciting interviews coming in with a lot of independent artists who are not necessarily filmmakers. Some of these people are just like, I think you're really going to enjoy hearing their perspectives, even though it's a little bit different than our usual programming. So I'm really excited to bring this to you guys. And I think that's all the updates I have. And until next time, that's a wrap.
So many days since you went away, how much I'm gonna worry both night and day. But someday, baby, you ain't gonna worry my life anymore. So that's my story. All I have to say to you, bye-bye, baby, don't care what you do. But someday, baby, you ain't gonna worry my life anymore.